Hi, and welcome to Women of Worth Wednesday. I apologize for the delay. That's all on me and GPS. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You are so funny. We're just happy to be here.
And I am here with the beautiful, wonderful, inspiring Sharlene Wells. And I'm so grateful that you took this time to connect with people all over the world. We're so happy to be with High Five Live, and we're grateful for their willingness to host this, produce this show each week, Women of Worth. And I hope today that you will have an insight into your own life in moving forward. That was our prayer right before going live. And so,
I loved it.
Thanks.
I appreciated that.
We always start with prayer before, because I've learned that God can work out all the technology and guide our thoughts in what we talk about today. So for those of you that have lived under a rock and don't know who Sharlene is, I think it's still helpful to give a little bit of a backstory.
I'm so old now.
No. That's not true. That can't be possible, because that means I am. Give everyone a little quick bio of your backstory.
Well, I was born in Paraguay. We'll go there.
Yeah, that's
there. Born in Paraguay, grew up in Latin America. Most of my teenage years were in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And came up to the States, went to my senior year here in Utah, and then went to BYU. And then a third of a century ago, went to Miss America.
At a time that there was needing some healing in the pageant system.
It was a weird
time. It was a weird time.
So nothing Miss America had resigned because of pictures in Playboy magazine, and so there was a lot of attention. We had more press coverage than ever before or since, and it was the highest rated Miss America ever before or since.
And first LDS?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one was from 1952.
Okay,
Miss BYU.
And did you feel some pressure for that?
No, because I was from Utah. So everyone who wins from Utah. No, it was going to be either Miss Texas or Miss Kentucky.
Or
those
California,
are the ones that
right?
win. Yeah. So I go in with no pressure other than to just do my best.
And show up for the job.
Exactly.
Which
just
I
do my best, have fun,
As I've been praying and preparing for today's conversation, I think that's kind of the theme. It's half the job is just showing up, right?
It really is. It's about the effort. In fact, I'm constantly reinforcing that with my kids.
Yes.
Ever since they were little, they've played the piano. And I remember a few years ago, one of my kids said, well, do you want us to be concert pianists? And I go, no, I want you to learn about the effort.
Yes.
And just being there every day.
So you showed up, and then guess what? They decide to put a big crown on you. Did you feel pressure at that point? Was that a different switcheroo?
My gosh, it was surreal.
Yeah.
It really is, because you don't envision yourself in that kind of position.
Unless you're, 7 or 8 and walking around.
Oh, there you go.
with some fake crown on your head.
That's always fun.
Someone may have done that. I don't know who that was. I don't know.
You would have looked so cute with a tiara on.
But I have to say, for all the Mormon girls in the universe, that was kind of a big thing. Like, I felt like it was just this statement of probably a pressure underneath the pressure of already this, title that... good wins and purity wins and modesty wins and all those things that LDS girls. I was growing up in California, and it was way before there were long shorts, right? Everything was about, I look like different than everyone at school just because I dressed different and I couldn't play on Sunday and, those kinds of things. And so all of a sudden there was a conversation starter besides Donnie and Marie.
That's true. And I have heard that, and I didn't realize what kind of impact that had until a long time afterward.
Yeah, I think it was very significant. So from that, what changed inside of you? What did you take from that experience that carried on? Because you're not carrying that title forever, and so it's a phase of your life, and then forever you're known for that.
You're
right?
always known as a former, which no matter what you accomplish afterwards, it's always going to start with that. And it took me probably a good 15, 20 years to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So now I'm a little more comfortable that it's way in the past, but it's still something. But what I learned from that, so many things, but really learning how to be cheerfully flexible.
Yes.
Because stuff gets thrown at you every day. You're speaking to this group that you didn't know about, or, oh, in 2 months you're going to be playing golf. You don't know how to play golf, but that's what you got to do.
That's what's required for the job.
You're going to be in a golf tournament. There's just all these things that you're constantly, every single day, and you can either buck against it and be miserable, or you can say, okay, I'm going to figure this out.
Which is probably was great prep for being a mom. You have 4 kids.
Oh yes,
Don't you think motherhood is constantly like, oh, we just spilled the grape juice all over the kitchen floor. Oh, you have a paper due today and you didn't start it. Right. Yeah. Right. So, how soon after that did your family start?
So let's see. I was 20 when I won Miss America,
and then you went on to do broadcasting for a while.
I graduated in broadcast journalism. I got married at 23. Right after I graduated at BYU, went to ESPN, but before I graduated at BYU, I was working 3 years at KSL. Yeah. Doing sideline football.
Shout out to KSL. Yeah. For our Utah
KSL viewers. Was so awesome because they called me up first. This was right after Miss America, and they say, do you want to do this PM magazine kind of thing? And I'm just on the phone with them, and I go, I'm really interested in sports. And this is back when
that was revolutionary,
sports, right? No women. And they go, okay. So they called me up a couple weeks later and they said, would you be interested in sideline football? And my first thought was, I don't know anything about football.
I love it. But, see the theme again.
Yeah, but I thought, you know what? I can learn. And boy, did I ever learn. I mean, I watched Monday Night Football twice. I would record it every single, Monday, and I'd watch it twice with questions. I'd spend hours studying the X's and O's. So.
How did you really get through that to where you started? Did you ever feel comfortable? Did it get to a point where you were like, or were you kind of always out of your comfort zone a little bit?
I think I was always out of my comfort zone. Because I'd never seen the inside of a helmet, or I'd seen it, I'd never worn it. You know? So anytime you haven't had that experience.
And now you've got to talk about
then
it.
You almost feel like, so fortunately my big focus when I was at ESPN was obviously down on the sidelines. It was injuries, but also little features that I would do on the athletes.
Profile stories.
Absolutely I can do.
You can talk about
and that kind of became my niche when I was doing all the different like Kentucky Derby. You see my Kentucky Derby behind it. This is a Tony Bennett. The Tony Bennett painted this. This was the cover.
See, this is why you tune into Women of Worth.
So this is Tony Bennett's signature right here.
Oh, I love it.
So this is you can't see it up there, but up at the top it says 127th Kentucky Derby because I covered the Kentucky Derby 9 years. Oh, and so my job there was to interview celebrities like Trump, like George Strait, Tony Bennett. It was really, really
wonderful.
Cool. Yeah.
So, and then when your family began, did the broadcasting phase out?
So, my first 2 children were born when I had my first 5-year contract with ESPN. And
were they supportive?
Well, they were so little. Yeah. They were so little. And my mom was hugely supportive. And so she would come and stay with them when I was gone. But I hated that. I hated being gone 3 days a week during the football season. Yeah. The rest of the time I was home quite a bit, but, so then I left that contract, but I did 9 years of freelance after that. So what that meant was just a handful of projects throughout the year. Okay. And that was it.
So then we kind of fast forward into this, these other projects that I really would love to kind of talk about. Your love for veterans and Memorial Day's on Monday and telling our stories. I think sometimes, we think we know someone's story, especially if they're in the public eye. Like I know Sharlene, and this is what she did, and but what I love about what you've done post-broadcasting is kind of find ways in which the everyday person can tell a story. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
So while my kids were still little, but when they were finally in school, I went back and got my master's degree in communication, focusing on integrated marketing.
And did that feel out of your comfort zone? Or?
It was so weird to be like a mom grandma going to school with all these young kids, but it took me 5 years.
Shout out to middle age.
Right. But it took me 5 years to get my master's degree.
Because of the pacing.
I did 1 class a semester.
I love it.
And it took me forever.
All the moms watching right now. Yeah. Last week we talked with Liz Lemon-Swindle. She had 5 kids when she went to school. And my gosh. I love that.
That master's made all the difference. Okay. Because it empowered me to do something very different. I knew I wasn't going back to television once the kids were all in school. And so I wanted to get something different. Yes. Because I couldn't just rest on, I did television before. That nobody's going to hire me just for that.
And walk around in your crown.
Yeah. The crown's not going to get me hired. Yeah. So I got into business and the company that I'm with now, the company is Story Rock, which is a digital content management company. We actually founded digital scrapbooking, that industry.
They were the beginnings.
Yes, like back in 2005. I remember introducing it in the Las Vegas Craft and Hobby Show.
And people are like, what?
What are you doing with a laptop at our hobby show?
And now it's the way we do
it. It is. We kind of completely flipped it. So that's one side of the business.
Okay.
But I run the other side of the business, which is the Remember My Service Productions side, which we work with the military
which
for the last
makes
13
me emotional.
years.
Like we cry on WoW.
Oh, I love it.
I have military dad, stepdad, brothers. So
same.
So tell me about why that.
So
feels
we
like
found out. I mean, we kind of. And here's my background is in television, which is telling stories.
Telling stories,
yeah?
Right?
It's all about telling stories. And we actually got approached by the military, by an Army Reserve Command here locally, saying, we need help telling our story. You guys are experts at telling the story, so we need some help. So at that point, we kind of produced, we did a full service production for the 96th Regional Readiness Command. And every single one of their soldiers got a CD-ROM. Back in those days, it was a CD-ROM.
Floppy disks, right?
and that has evolved over the years from CD-ROM to DVD-ROM to, it was just crazy. Now actually we're in publishing because guess what? Ink on paper lasts longer than anything else.
Yay for the authors of the world.
Yay.
There's something about
like this.
Yes, like this. Having a book. So
this is what we do for the Vietnam veterans. Utah did 47,000 copies of this to thank all of our Vietnam veterans. It's all about stories of service, duty, and sacrifice.
I love it.
So, and we've done probably 300,000 copies of these so far. The plan is 7 million.
And you profile individual soldiers?
Well, we do little nuggets, little stories. On this one for the Vietnam 50th, which we're right in the peak year
was
of.
a bigger
This one, we
scope.
picked stories that would represent the collective.
Okay.
So that's why it was really important to get these stories representing all different states and all different services so that we had that.
So question, it's sometimes hard to get veterans to talk.
Oh, yes, it is. In fact, that's why these are so important.
Yeah.
Because when
that
they start looking at it,
lost, right?
Yes. And but here's something that happened when we did the Korea Reborn, which was the Korean War 60th commemoration a few years ago, which we're still doing, but that got funded by Korea, and we distributed about 400,000 copies of that to Korean War veterans. We started getting emails from family members saying, my dad never talked about it, and now he is.
He is.
Because he saw that, I served there, and let me tell you what I did.
And then there's something that is neutral that helps the conversation start.
Right. And then that loved one knows that the family understands better because they can first see the documentary that goes with this book or something. So.
Which is so profound. I feel like, especially for an LDS audience, we teach, family history. We teach keeping our stories. But I think if you have a veteran in your family, you know that gets brushed over. Like, oh, that was when we were in the war. And then you're on to the next thing post-war. What great Father's Day gifts to find these books. Where can they find these? These
are just gifts.
Okay.
So you can't purchase them. The Korea one, I think now you can. I think, oh gosh, here's terrible of me that I don't know. KoreaReborn.org, I think, for that one. But everything else is given as a gift.
Okay.
They're sponsored. They're given as a gift.
Okay.
And our unit historical records, the same thing. So there is a book that's just coming out that we published called Breaching the Summit, and that's the top 6 senior enlisted advisors to the chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And they wrote this book, and that's just now coming out. And I should have had that off the top of my head, but I think it's breachingthesummit.com.
Okay.
That would be a good one too.
So does this feel like this little niche for you is taking a culmination of all your life experiences and putting it in this place that is so probably perfect for the season of life that you're in?
It's kind of strange because as I look back on my life, what did any of these have in common?
Yes.
And there's this one common thread, and it's called communication.
Communication.
And it's telling the story.
Yes.
And everything that I've done is all about telling the story. And there's an important component to that too, which is when you talk about, like for veterans, when you talk about a difficult experience that you've had, it helps you heal.
Yes.
So whether it's sexual assault, whether
it's
a military experience, you have to be able to talk about it, and that's why things like this initiate conversation.
Yeah, and I think innately we all want to have our story known and heard.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think what a great service to give to a population that generally kind of stuffs it.
Yeah.
On a side note, a personal note, you've written a few books of your own. One of them greatly impacted my life, and it was Kissing a Frog. And I read it at a time where now I look back and see why Heavenly Father made sure it got in my lap.
Really?
Yeah, because soon after that, I was really put in a position to step out of some comfort zones and had similar experiences with communication in working with a regional magazine and doing some television spots. And at the time, you know, I was a mama and so happy to be a mama, but there was this part of me that had originally wanted to broadcast journalism, was my heart, and did a teaching degree instead. And I remember reading that book and feeling like you had already been an example to me. I'd already felt like you were someone I could watch and hopefully, you know, model some of my life choices on. But my life had taken a little bit of a different turn. And I love the whole theme of that book was really, are you willing to do the thing that looks like it's not going to work? Like kissing the frog was like ridiculous. Why would you do that? Right? And I think about the story of Moses and his mama saying, I think I'll put a baby in a basket. Well, that doesn't even make any sense. How is that going to lead to then he becomes this great leader, right?
Absolutely.
So can you share maybe a little tidbit of going forward in your life? How do you keep stepping out of the comfort zone and trusting that God is often asking us to do those things that don't make sense, don't seem like they're fitting in with our plans? And what do you pull from to kind of go forward and not get stuck?
So the first thing in getting outside your comfort zone is being okay with failing. So it's just like when I learned how to ski, the first thing I learned how to do was learn how to stop. I learned how to stop so that way I knew I was going to fall down. I knew I was going to do all this other stuff. But I thought, okay, I'm not going to learn how to carve and all this stuff. First, I got to figure out that I can stop. And as soon as I knew in my head, I know how to stop. Okay, well then go forward. I'm going to fall maybe a little bit, but that's okay. So once I became okay with failure being an important part of success, it's, you know, then you don't look at it as this ugly word. It's a really important part of your success.
Listen, I was just with some general church leaders yesterday. We had a conversation after an event. Why has the LDS culture decided that failing is like the biggest no-no ever?
See, and I grew up, here my mom was a concert pianist, right? You would think perfectionist, right?
Yes, precision.
So here's where she was a perfectionist, in my practicing. So she would listen to me to, oh, hey, you're getting sloppy, or fix that note. But guess what happened in my performances, which I always botched. I mean, I always forgot stuff.
I love it.
But in my performances, my mom would say, you did great. You did. And I said, Mom, did you realize I forgot the whole last page?
Yes.
Nobody noticed.
Isn't that awesome?
You know, so failure was not a scary thing for me growing up.
In your family.
Yeah.
I just talked to an 85-year-old woman that opened my new book, You Are Magnificent, and one of the pop-out quotes is about making mistakes and that we should celebrate that. And she turned to me and said, if I had been raised that way, my whole life would have been different.
Very different.
So what a gift that your mom gave you that.
It was a safety net.
Yes.
Because you know what? I already know my parents are going to love me.
Yes.
I already know that, I might be embarrassed. I might feel really stupid for the next couple days, but I'm going to get over it. I'm going to get over it. I'm going to move past it. But failure teaches you.
So that's your first tip, is that be okay with the failure.
First you have to do, you have to be okay with failure. The second thing for me, and I'm probably not going in order of this book because it's been a long time since I wrote the book.
It's fine.
Plus I've also developed
You've had life
concepts.
experiences, right?
But the other thing that is important is to stick with people who you know support you.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people probably in your life who don't support you, and you have to kind of get rid of them.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way, but if they're not going to be lifting you up, they're only bringing you down.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes it's people really close to you, which makes it really hard.
To have a healthy boundary.
Yes, yes. But a lot of times, it's just people you work with.
Yeah.
It's just friends.
Yes.
And you keep on going back to those same places.
Because
they just bring you down.
Right, right.
So if it's a bad boss, get away from that bad boss.
Yeah.
If it's friends that are just on the periphery that just are constantly little nitpicking things, or they're gossiping or whatever, and they don't make you feel good, get away from them.
Which I love Nephi's example of that, when God finally said to him, "You're done with your crazy brothers."
Right.
You know? And I think, in many ways, those years where he was around them developed his strengths, his internal strength, and his being the great prophet he ended up being. But I bet his wife was just like, good.
Yeah.
No more Sunday dinners with the crazy people. Because they keep tying you up, and I don't like that. That's not healthy. So what do you feel going forward now? Like, how do you trust Heavenly Father when you hear that voice once again? Because I think sometimes I think, oh, I already did that. He's already taught me that lesson. Then I'm 47 and he's saying it again, and I'm like, this doesn't feel comfortable. Wait
and
a
the
minute.
older you get, you should be able to trust your gut and that voice, a little bit more. And I always grew up with hearing from my parents that God plus one equals the majority. So I just always kind of keep relying on that one. And I've learned some things along the way, personal relationship kind of things that has helped me as I tackle new big things. One is don't take things personally and don't make assumptions. So there's those two big things. But very close to it, a third one is to speak to yourself positively.
I love it.
Don't introduce negative stuff. Just only talk to yourself positively.
Well, and that's what I've been asked a lot by reporters about this new book and why I wrote it and what should people know. And the thing I would say is that exact thing. I would never talk to Sharlene the way I talk to myself sometimes, right?
That's the truth.
And yet, if we really register in our heads that our self-talk is draining
like, that
us.
was dumb.
Yeah.
Did you really just do that?
Yeah. Well, what do you feel going forward as you see what's happening in our country, and you see specifically with families and military and all of that dynamic that's going forward? What would your suggestion be on communication and helping families kind of move forward with their own? I think our country is pretty divided right now, and I think there are feelings of hurt that within families and in the country that are creating what I call the ites. Do you have any thoughts on that in closing?
Wow. We are so blessed with such an incredible country with a history that is really something that was crafted by God. There's really no other explanation for it. It has been difficult to see this kind of divisiveness. But then again, I go into these pockets and I'll go into these smaller towns. And it's not that way. And it's not that way. It doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like the only time that I see that is when I watch CNN or Fox. And so then
the divisions are like, woo!
Yeah. And then I go, okay, these are just a bunch of talking ducks. So I try to remove myself from that. A few years ago, went away from cable.
So did I.
Yeah.
It's very freeing.
And I just did the little rabbit ears, and started doing that.
Same.
And then I moved to a place where not even the rabbit ears work. So now I have to go back to cable because I got to watch ESPN every now and then, right?
Well, because you gave them their big star, right? They were nothing.
No. Yeah, right. So it's gratifying when I go to these smaller places, but especially when I'm with the military. Yes. And to see, I was on a base 2 weeks ago, Fort Stewart, Georgia. At 5 o'clock, I think it was 5 o'clock, the national anthem started playing. Everybody just stops and turns around to where the flag is. And I went, whoa, what happened? And everybody just turns around and straight as an arrow, and they're quiet until that Star Spangled Banner was done.
I love it.
And I went, oh my gosh, our military really
needs it.
It does.
Right?
It does. So there's a lot out there that's really good. Great. Unfortunately, we hear too much of these, and we place too much emphasis on what these pundits are.
And I think that goes right back to your tips, that it's what we tune into, right? And what stories we're telling ourselves, right? And we have so many viewers from all over the world, and so we don't just have a United States-based viewership, but I would say those principles apply to whatever country you're in, Zimbabwe to Norway. That out of respect, I was in England last year, and I was asked a lot about President Trump everywhere I went.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere I went. What do you think of President Trump?
And they automatically assume that you can't stand him, too.
Yes, right. And I say, I love my country. I want the best for my country. And that became my mantra. And everyone, no matter what race or nationality I was speaking to could respect that.
Right.
And I would say that these principles apply no matter what country. And in the gospel, we're taught to sustain the laws of our land and to honor and respect when it's difficult. It can be so easy to get bitter. And I love that you're such an example of positivity and strength. And thank you for being an example to me personally and helping me.
It's mutual.
Well, I just feel like to get that book at that time and really have someone say to me, it's okay to fail. And for a perfectionist, that was constantly something I had to challenge in my own head. So I hope our viewers today have felt the spirit that I feel being with you. And I'm grateful for Memorial Day coming for the United States viewers that we get to remember. And I think sometimes we get these holidays and we just kind of brush over them. But
it's not about the barbecue as much as it is remembering those who sacrificed their lives.
Right. So thank you for adding to our lives. And thank all of you. Please share this, especially if you have a veteran in your life right now. Maybe this video will be that little tipping point, neutral conversation like, hey, guess who was just on Women of Worth? And then maybe your veteran in your life will maybe share a little bit about what
and ask
experience.
Questions.
What
they
question?
They may not answer, but go ahead and say, tell me about your service. Tell me what boot camp was like. Tell me what were some of the hard things. And when you show an interest, it might take them a while to open up, but that's one of the best gifts you can give a veteran in your life, is to ask them questions.
What a great takeaway. Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. See you next week, Women of Worth Wednesday.